Yeah, and if I could add to that too, I think the biggest piece is in terms of the next generation is really diversifying content while integrating content as well. So you're going to go to different things, right? So if I had a crystal ball, and I wish I did because I'd be retired by now, but you know, Facebook stock isn't great. So if you take a look at Facebook and where it's going to be in the next 5 to 10 years, it's likely going to be a completely different platform. But mobile isn't going to change. So mobile is only going to amp up and amplify. So how we look at tablet devices and mobile devices, you know, my brother gets a smartphone, and I look at my cousins who are getting into middle school and high school, they're not even getting a regular phone. It's immediately a smartphone device. And what they're using is location-based services as well. So as we think about location-based services, how can we deliver content to them that's personalized, right? And then it's localized to their exact area, so that way it feels like a much richer experience for them too.
And I have to say, most of the teenagers I know are far smarter than most of us in the room in terms of screening out stuff that they don't like. Yeah. So if they don't want you to interact with them, you will never interact with them. So you have to make every interaction count. You've got to be there, because otherwise they hide you, they block you, all those kind of things. And they set up their privacy screenings a lot more detailed-like than a lot of grown-ups I know, and they understand what they're setting up. And so they really do choose who they're going to see what from in a way that makes it so that if you're not presenting messages that are easily accessed by them, then you won't make it through. So I think part of the social side of social media is going to be more important than it has been with people that were media-oriented and went into social media. I think the social side is growing more.
I read an article and it was great. It was talking about how to think like a gamer. And the whole idea was that, I mean, I grew up thinking, you know, give me the manual, I read the manual, then I'll do it. And then what kids today, they just do it. They play games, they die. They have a player, they go farther, they die. They play another, they go another level, and they learn by doing so much more than we ever did. We learn by learning. And our old school learnings. I think us listening to this generation is so important. Because I know, like myself, I don't like the location-based stuff. I don't want you to know where I'm at all the time. I really don't. It bothers me. But as you said, that's what they like. They want, what kind of deal can I get when I go to the Target aisle? What can I do? I'm right here. What's the best restaurant? All those things. So we have to change to capture that audience.
I think this is really interesting because I was a teacher up until this last year. This is the first year in over 20 years I'm not going back to school. But yeah, trying to connect with those students and think like them, and everything is just so different. And then I've got a younger brother who's a sophomore in college, and even being around our farm and stuff, he's been working on our farm this summer, and after 2 weeks there, he's like, you know, I've been around here and stuff, but I had no idea what it was like to really work on the farm, and they don't. And so who was saying, creating that experience for them, you know, so they really feel like they're there, but it's, I don't know. And then I've got a 3-year-old, well, he's 4 now, but when he was 3, he said, Mom, why don't we have a regular farm? And I said, what do you mean? And he's like, you know, with a cow to milk and 1 pig and some goats. And so I think we've got a big task, and this is my teacher brain thinking, but kids from high school on down, even the little kids, they see plenty of big tractors and boats, but they're not seeing modern livestock farming. There's nothing out there for young kids. And so, yeah, that's definitely something we need to be thinking about, is not just the adults, but if we can get to those kids a little bit earlier, as they're starting to form their opinions and grow up, that would be awesome too.
Well, because this is an ag thing, you know, it's interesting that you should bring that up. As a former teacher, Secretary Vilsack last night was talking about that very same thing, about how in schools we need to bring back some form of ag education in the classroom, so that, because as we move further and further away from the farm, and that becomes more of a clouded picture. And he was talking about that last night, and it just all makes sense. Yeah. It really does. You know, 2 quick things. Yeah, I have ADD so bad. You know? This is really rough.
That's why the
yeah, I know you know that. See, so that's why I have 3. You know, because oh yeah, oh look, a cat. Video. You're talking about video and how you connect with people. I think this is really interesting. When you look to see on YouTube what is popular, it spans two different worlds, I think, from the silly to the sublime. And I found that oftentimes when we post things, and I think we've got about 400 videos up on our video channel now, the silly stuff just skyrockets, you know, and it continues to be shared all over the place. Whereas when we want to talk to somebody about something important that we think is important, yeah, nobody watches the thing whatsoever. And I think that's, and then the other thing on how to reach consumers, whether it's ag consumers or anybody at any age, is that the entertainment value of whatever you're putting out on YouTube has got to be first rate. Now, first rate doesn't always mean expensive. Quick story, Dollar Shave Club. Anybody heard of Dollar Shave Club? They did a video this spring, and I thought maybe they spent $25K on the video. Come to find out, they spent $4,200 on that video that was seen during the Super Bowl, as a matter of fact. That was the only airing of that. Everything else was, and I think the last time I looked, it had 8, 9 million views. But how did that, what's the ROI in that $4,200? For $1, you join the Dollar Shave Club. Within the first 4 weeks of that thing going viral, get this number, they had 35,000 people that were paying $1 a month to Dollar Shave Club. But in relationship to that, they had an additional 50,000 folks that were paying $3.50. So you do the math, and what was the ROI of their $4,200 investment plus the $1 million to run it on? It's just remarkable. And so I think entertainment, you know, and then good creative is just so critical.
I'll quick jump in. This has been really fascinating to listen to everyone's opinions and just their experiences, because our company actually focuses in the collegiate audience, the 18 to 24-year-olds. And what we do is we hold focus groups, and we specifically pick out like team captains, how they make their purchasing decisions, who their friends are, what kind of blogs they're reading, what channel are they reading it on? Are they reading it on their phone, their tablet, their computer, a desktop? And it's fascinating because all of this is true. It's changing very rapidly, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see where we're at in the next 5 years. But I think it ultimately just comes down to, like, they're humans. They're connecting with each other the way they know what's natural to them, and it's just kind of figuring out, okay, like you were saying, we have to connect with them in new ways, and we have to figure out where they're finding their information. And I just think it's really fascinating, you know, like bringing farming back into schools and finding ways to tell the farming story through these new channels. But I think we can do that mostly through the listening and through, you know, learning about how students are behaving and how we can reach them and resonate with them to get them to share their stories too.
And that makes sense, because we have a program called Ag in the Classroom. I can't tell you how old
Sure.
the program is.
Yeah.
It's to get
It's
ag in
old.
the classroom, right? And so what do farmers do? They go to the classroom. Guess what? There's no time in the classroom. They don't even have time for recess anymore. I mean, really, if they have fun, we're wasting time, which drives me crazy. A little bit of socialization going on at recess or PE, and now we've got a problem with obesity. Just a little bit, you know? So that's the thing, though, is let's go online, let's go virtual. How do we get farmers then on board to see this is the next opportunity?
And it would be really good to hear, like, positive things about farming online, because I feel like what's happened is because we haven't established a positive presence online, what you hear is King Corn, and you hear all these stories that get shared by the people who are living online and connecting online, but you don't have this, you have the missing half, but it's because nobody's online. So I think there's a lot of, like you were saying, Janet, opportunity for everybody in this room and everyone you know to talk to about it to really get on board.
Larry, tell your latest media story and what we can do to help you share the truth.
Which one are you speaking of?
The one with the Huffington Post, HuffPo.
Huffington Post. That was a deal that I was invited to be on a live TV panel discussion. And it was through the internet. It was of stuff, I
Plus
don't
or
know that.
Skype.
Yeah,
Can't
Google,
remember.
yeah. But, we got close to time that it was supposed to go live, and of course, the equipment wasn't working right. So we ended up doing it, I was on a phone trying to talk to all these people, who I thought there were a lot of people. Come to find out, I don't think it ever was on live TV, but it turned out that I was speaking to a food blogger from California who was a vegetarian, and some guy with an English accent who was a vegetarian, and the producer of the show was a vegetarian. And they wanted me on there to talk about how I raise pigs. And they talked a little bit, they actually showed a video of Christensen Family Farms. The last video, they spent about 3-4 months taking video, and they actually never found any abuse, period. But when it went supposedly live, these two people started talking about it. They introduced who they were, and they let me introduce who I was, and I told a little about how I raise pigs. And from doing this in the past, I know you gotta get in your words as you can right off the bat. You might not get another chance. That's kind of the way it was on CNN. It was pretty quick. But they went to showing this video, it had Bob Barker narrating it. It had eerie, scary music playing in the background, and of course I couldn't see the video. But then they were talking about how terrible we were abusing all these pigs. And that video has been reviewed, and there's really nothing bad in that video. But as it turned out, I was just on there so they could show their video. That's just as far as it went. And then, of course, after it was all over, they apologized to me that I couldn't talk. They actually had me muted so that I couldn't speak. So that's just one of those
So,
media tricks.
and I asked Larry to tell that because I think it's contingent upon us to speak up and say there is another side. There are people that raise animals correctly. And it's fine if you want to be a vegetarian, but look at the other side too. And that's one thing.
What we try to push is that you just have choices. I mean, I don't mind people, if they want to buy organic, that's fine, there's a market for that. If you want to buy a certain type of pork, or Berkshire pork, you can buy beef. I'm getting kind of in an argument right now with the beef people. They're trying to, this one guy just trying to take market share away from pork. He thinks that beef people should go in with HSUS and campaign against pork and chickens because we're so mean. And I mean, he's a beef person. No.
No, I had that, I was talking to a beef person about antibiotic use on our farms, and he was like, oh, I don't wanna have anything to do with it, I don't use antibiotics, I just, you know. And he said, well, how do you use antibiotics? And I explained it, and he was like, oh, that's not so bad. You know, and I'm not trying to single out beef people or anything, I'm just saying that there, like Janice said, there is miscommunication, or, I mean,
Right. And that's kind of what I was talking about. Sometimes we do have to talk to the farmer and communicate just in ag. Because if we can't get our story kind of coordinated, I mean, we're all different, but we still have to share the same type of story and support each other. And we are trying real hard to get into schools. That ag in the classroom, we're pushing that hard. I think at the last 140 conference, what was your candidate's name? I forget. Desmond. He spoke up and asked me a question, and he stated that as he was growing up in Chicago, he was 17 years old before he knew that meat came from an animal. So, and he asked why we're not getting into schools and spreading our message. It takes money, it takes time. Farmers don't have much of either.
Just real quick, if any of you are in a situation like Larry, the Center for Food Integrity did do the animal care review panel for the Christensen Family Farms. It's a panel where we, again, utilize the experts to look at the video and say whether or not it is a really bad case of animal abuse or if there's regular practices. And then those experts can go in and explain what those farming practices are. And we just launched it earlier this year, and it's been really successful, and you know, hopefully can help situations like Larry and Puppy Post. So, Center for Food Integrity, the Animal Care Review Panel.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, we have some snacks and a cash bar out in the lobby. Why don't we retire there? Thank you, Tyler.